This is the Enochs Show, America's most controversial podcast, coming to you live from UNT. That's KNTU Radio. We're in the studio today talking about some different things. Normally, we talk about politics or religious faith, but today we're doing something completely different. To quote Monty Python, now for something completely different. Tonight we're going to be talking about dreams, interpretation of dreams, symbols, archetypes, Freud, Jung, all kind of different things that we normally don't talk about here at the Enochs Show. But before we get into that, we're here with Brock talking about sports. Brock, Colorado upsets TCU on Saturday, and all heck is broken out in sports. Overhype. Basically, they're talking about, can Colorado win the national championship now? Just from one victory. What's your take on it, Brock? Is it overhype? Is University of Colorado being overhyped, or they deserve all the publicity that's coming their way?
I'd say it's a little bit of both. I mean, you really can't deny what Deion Sanders has done for that team, but at the same time, they are getting really overhyped over one game after they beat everybody's saying that they beat the defending national champion team, when that team, 90% of that team is not on that team, on this year's TCU team. And then you got their defense just let up 42, even though they did put up 45 and win. Their defense is still a question mark even when Pac-12 football starts, and they get an easy opponent again in Nebraska this week, so we really can't just judge them based off of those two games alone. We'll have to wait until conference play starts to even think of considering them national champions, and when it comes to that kind of hype.
If Nebraska beats Colorado, which no one's really predicting, the hype ends, right?
Pretty much. Like, Nebraska as a whole is a dysfunctional team with Scott Frost at the helm, and if they somehow, some way pull off an upset this week, then yeah, there goes that whole national championship hype. That's over with.
So we've got different things coming up here. The first game of the season, NFL, on Thursday. We got Kansas City versus Detroit. Speaking of hype, the Detroit Lions are being predicted to go into the playoffs this year. Something tells me that's hype right there. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd say they're a little bit overhyped. I mean, they're obviously NFC North's probably gonna be really tough again, but even then, the NFC as a whole, outside of a few teams, is pretty weak. But who knows if Jared Goff's gonna be the one that takes them to a playoff spot? Who knows if that's gonna happen? Plus, Jameson Williams is suspended too, so that's that.
Well, didn't Jared Goff take the Rams to the Super Bowl a couple years ago?
He did, but then again, that was the they had a really good season that season, but even then, if you look at that Saints NFC Championship game, obviously the whole controversy with the refs, and then the week after that, they no-showed the Super Bowl essentially.
Completely collapsed offensively in the Super Bowl, right?
Right.
Wasn't it the Super Bowl like 12-10 or some really low score?
Yep, final was 13-3.
Oh, I didn't know it was that bad for the Rams. But then Jared Goff gets traded from the Rams to Detroit.
Yep.
And last year, in the second half of the season, he doesn't even throw an interception the whole second half, right?
Right. They went from 1-6 at the midway point of the season to finishing the season 8-9.
So there could be some definite talk about Lions going to the playoffs this year.
Right.
We'll see what happens. So we have Kansas City versus Detroit on Thursday. Right. Is that going to be on Amazon Prime?
I think it's on Peacock, I think, or NBC or whatever thing televises that, like that whole network.
So Amazon Prime, which I have, hold up your hand if you have Amazon Prime. None of you guys? You guys? Anyways, I got Amazon Prime. I think Thursday night games are Amazon Prime games.
Oh, yeah.
But Kelsey's out.
He's out. Chris Jones is out because he's holding out for a new contract. There's just two impact players in Kansas City will not be playing this week.
So what I don't really understand, a lot of these NFL players, they have millions of dollars guaranteed to them. They just play the season, yet they sit out and forfeit all that money to get a better contract.
Pretty much, that's pretty much been it's been a tactic that players have done, agents have done for like years upon years. That's been just it's a traditional thing when players are in contract years, and especially when they play like they need to be extended and they haven't been given said contract yet. So when it escalates, it really gets bad.
Well, segueing away from sports, we're talking about something tonight that we normally don't talk about: dreams. You ever have a weird dream, Brock?
I've had a few.
I used to have this dream where I was flying. And it was weird. I would have the dream at least once a year throughout my childhood that I just remember, you guys ever see The Matrix?
Yes.
I don't know if it was the first Matrix. Well, at the end, he looks up into the sky and he flies, right? And then, no, the first one, which I saw 30 times when it came out. No, he's talking to the Matrix on the phone, and he puts his sunglasses on and he flies into the sky. That was how it ended, and I think it was like Rage Against the Machine, like a song ended it, right? But then the second one, third one, he's like Superman. He's out in the clouds and flying, and I used to have a dream that I used to fly around in the sky. I'm not sure what that was all about, but it was every single year I'd have that same dream. So in our studio tonight, we have Brock on sports. We have Jackson Polmeyer, a student here at UNT who did a lot of studying about dreams and interpretation of dreams. And we got Devin Scott, a friend of mine who's did a lot of studying on this issue of dream work, and we're going to get right into it. So Devin, tell us about your background. How did you get into dreams?
Well, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but there's a commonly documented phenomenon in sleep studies, sleep research, and dream research called mutual dreams or shared dreams. This is where it gets weird. You and someone else have the exact same dream, the same night. And I did that a lot with separate people, different friend groups in high school. I would walk up to them and say, "Hey, did you dream about a roller coaster last night?" Freaks out, right? So I had a multiple of those experiences, right? And we're actually testing that now. You know, it was in 2014 when we finally scientifically proved that lucid dreaming was a thing. And now we're using that to research mutual dreams. So that's what got me into it. You know, that was an incredible experience. And so from then on, I actually started sleeping 12 hours a day in high school. Like if I wasn't at school, I was sleeping so I could dream. And then, you know, life goes on, right? Join the army, all these things, right? And eventually I was able to go to Concord Career College. I decided, you know what, I'm devoting my life to dreams. That is the only thing that makes me, you know, feel alive. So I went to Concord Career College, became a sleep tech, all right? And then from there I went to IDS, which is the Institute of Dream Studies. They're not accredited yet, but they have 2 sitting board members from the IASD. I know I'm sending a lot of acronyms right now, but that is the International Association for the Study of Dreams. So that's anything from a shaman in the Congo to neuroscientists to quantum physicists are in this organization. So I have a certification from them that allows me to do dream work, which is a lot different than dream interpretation. I don't tell you what your dream means. I ask you questions until you remember, because you're the only one who can understand your dreams, because it's highly subjective.
So, Jackson, you've done some work on dreams too. Last week we were talking about this, right? You've given some thought about this.
Oh, that's right. I mean, I've always had a serious interest in Carl Jung, and he has a lot of ideas about how symbols emerge in dreams. And, you know, there's a a lot of debate about whether they are expressions of our consciousness or whether it's our consciousness's way of sort of ordering the world into these forms that we can understand. But I don't know. I definitely think there's a lot to be unpacked from the random things that your mind tries to tell you whenever you're asleep.
Well, from a Christian perspective, as we talked about last week, there were instances in the Old Testament where you had Daniel and you had Joseph, and you had different monarchs that had dreams, and Daniel and Joseph interpreted those dreams, and the meaning of the dream was this. So there's definitely symbols and whatnot in some of those Old Testament monarchs' dreams, right?
Yes. So those would be prophetic dreams. So sometimes, well, God will talk to you in your dreams, in my belief, right? And so there are prophetic dreams, which can tell the future, tell how things are, in as they are, and then because dreams aren't just one thing, that's like saying I do one thing when I'm awake. Dreams have more than one function. Everyone wants, well, what do dreams do? A lot of things. So it's a laundry list.
So why is this important? Why are we talking about this? I know my sister who watches this show is going to think, what in the world are you guys, what is their brother getting himself into? Just some weird thing on dreams. But all of us have dreams.
Yes.
Matter of fact, just the last couple of nights, I've been dreaming just weird stuff, and I'm not sure if it's bad food, Brock. I'm not sure what was going on, but I was having some weird dreams. And so the question I have, and I'm sure this has been a thing, is are dreams the outworking of the subconscious mind? Things that you going on in your personal life, like in your regular day, and so in your dreams, are you kind of working out your issues through dreams? Is that one interpretation of
that is one function. So throughout the night, and this is why I took sleep tech education. Throughout the night, you can have dreams that have different functions. So like towards the middle or the beginning of the night, you get those really fuzzy, really weird, wonky dreams. This is part of how you remember things. So yeah, you can remember things like a list, right? A list of words. But what your subconscious does is it takes all of your experiences through the day and then symbolizes them. It's like a zip file. Like I don't need to remember everything as it was. You technically don't forget anything. And I'm also going to say something that you're going to hear probably a few times: separation and illusion. Your dreams will absolutely affect your day, and your day absolutely affects your dreams. It's a cycle. There is no separation there. And the only time you will actually really understand that is when you start doing dream work yourself and watching them, and then you'll be like, wow, that is it's something that you have to experience. And we have seen that in neurology. There's a wonderful book called Dream Language by Bob Haas that goes into it.
You have some thoughts on this, Jackson?
Well, geez, where do I even start?
It's a lot.
The point that you made about there is no separation between your waking mind and your sleeping mind. That's absolutely something that you find in psychological work. Even the dreams that you don't necessarily remember, it's possible for them to plant these seeds in your mind, and then over time, they grow into these complex thoughts, these ways of interpreting the world. But that's I think that is why it's important to sort of just keep a dream journal or anything, so you can kind of keep track of these ideas, because it's very possible for them to tell you about things that you could do different throughout your day, things that you've maybe been trying to desperately avoid thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So that actually goes into the process of actualization, which is you can either consciously get in part of this process, or your dreams will start it for you, because it is you. It is your will. You're just not technically consciously in control of it. And the process of actualization is the process of becoming whole, right? So we repress a lot, even from childhood. And so what dreams do is they want to make you you. So anything that you denied yourself. So say you were a genius and you're a genius at piano, but your father beats you at like 6 or 7 for making so much noise. All right, Mozart's gone right at that point, right?
Michael Jackson. That sounds like Michael Jackson. Like his dad would whip. Oh, serious.
Yeah.
No, I mean. It's not really, I mean, I know we're laughing about it.
We're laughing because it's not funny.
But Michael Jackson, was pretty screwed up in many ways. And I think a lot of it had to do with his father beating him, Joe Jackson beating him and his brothers if they missed a dance step or something like that. And so.
Yeah. So what could he have been if he wasn't forced to be that? And that's probably where the psychological breaks in his later life came from, because at that point, who am I? All right, and that's where dreams and your subconscious, even when you're awake, like right now, all of our subconscious and anyone listening or watching, your subconscious is watching this.
So the two big psychologists in the history of modern psychology, Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, they at one time, you guys can correct me, but at one time they were kind of collaborators, and then they had a falling out or something. But one thing I didn't know, doing some background study of this, that it was actually Sigmund Freud that wrote a whole treatise on interpretation of dreams. So, question I have is, what was the basic difference between Freud and Jung on the issue of dreams? Or was there any substantial difference, and do we know about that at all? I know I didn't have you guys looking at it, but go ahead.
I definitely have an answer, but I'd love to hear what you have to say, man.
Oh, well, as far as I am aware, I mean, I believe that this is originally what kind of broke them up, was their disagreement on how to use dreams to benefit the course of psychological work. And I know that Jung went on to develop his idea of archetypes and symbols, which they're kind of represented throughout all of mythology. They pop up in everybody's dreams just sort of the same way, and he uses that sameness, the similarities in a sort of collaborative way. He has this idea of like a collective unconscious. And I think Freud probably wasn't a big fan of that one. He was very focused on just the individuals, like sit down on the couch and tell me what's wrong with you personally. And I don't know, he still very much used dream analysis though. So I mean, I don't know what you have to say about that.
Yeah, but the way he looked at it. So Freud believed that libido was like the only thing that really matures an adult. Or like throughout your life, from child to death, libido is the main thing. That's my understanding.
Sexual urges?
Yeah, sexual urges, or the lack thereof, right? I'm glad you brought up the collective unconscious, because people think, oh, that's mystical, it's something I can't see, but you can see it in art, you can see it in stories, you see it in myths, you can see it in your obviously your dreams. There are patterns in human behavior, just like evolution, right? If you believe in evolution or adaptation, doesn't matter. There are certain patterns to civilization. They make bread, they make alcohol, and they do it next to a river. right? So that's what a lot of these symbols are. It's kind of like genetic memory. You know, if being taller and stronger kept me alive, that's going to work. If understanding a symbol for a way a person is, the way nature is, or how you understand things, that's going to be passed down. So, you know, just like genetic memory is for your body, neurologically, you're carrying a lot of stuff from your ancestors. Everyone who came before you, they're in there. In a way, they are in there. If that makes sense.
Well,
and that's the collective unconscious, in my understanding.
Something I want to say before I give it over to Jackson. Did you want to say anything about dreams at all, Rod?
I mean, y'all got a lot of stuff covered, so I mean, I don't really remember my dreams that much, so that's that.
But the reason why I'm bringing this up, people might say, listen on this show, and they might go, "What in the world is Lee Enochs doing?" You went from a guy just talking about politics all the time or different contemporary issues here at UNT to talking about dreams, getting esoteric. What's the whole point? What's the whole thing? Well, first of all, the issue of psychology is huge. I mean, we have a psychology department. You get a PhD in psychology, counseling, therapy. These things are widespread throughout American culture. And then, you know, Freud and Jung are the two big pillars of modern psychology. And just all of us have dreams. These are issues that, what do you do about these dreams? What if you have a reoccurring dream? What if you have a dream? What was that one song by Tears for Fears? And then it was Gary Jukes was his name? I was in a dream.
Oh, no.
What was that?
I was going to say it's Everybody Wants to Roll the World, but that's not the song that you're talking about.
No, he talked about it. He was in his dreams. He thought he was dying.
Yeah, I've had that one a few times.
But it was a really big song. That came out. He actually did a remake.
Yeah, Mad World.
Mad World.
Oh,
that song. Oh, yeah. That's actually the first song
I didn't even know that. I didn't know that there was a reboot of that song.
No. He actually did a better job, I think, than the original version. And Tears for Fears and Gary Jukes have collaborated on that same song because Tears for Fears realized how good a job Gary Jukes did. He slowed the tempo down, put his own kind of ethos in the whole situation. Made it kind of more of a depressing song. But he said that in my dreams, something about him dying.
The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had.
Oh gosh! So that
I gotta say, personally, I don't know. This might just be my sole opinion, but I really love the Tears for Fears version. Just a little bit more. Just a little bit more.
Definitely. It's more. It's different tempo of the song. It's faster, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a jam. Absolutely, really depressing still, but can't help but groove to that one.
But that was a big song in the early 2000s, right? The Gary Jukes version of it. I just remember the best he ever had. What was that? Was that like a suicidal thing?
So, death and change, symbolically, are essentially the same thing. In my opinion, everyone who started this conversation is dead now.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Oh, yeah. Weird, right? Every second, you are changing. The Lee Enoch that was last week, that man is dead. This is.
I don't know. I'm going to take it different. Different, but not dead.
But that is what dreams are. So when you are dying, or something is dying, something is either changing or getting left out of your So a lot of you've heard of ego death, right? Ego is also one of these archetypes. So ego is what you project outward. So if I change, like as a person, right, that ego is dead, and I may have a dream about it. I may actually go to the gallows with a smile on my face, right, which is weird, right? But symbolically, that Devin is now dead, and the new Devin gets to live. That's why a lot of people don't like dream work, because it's very symbolic, very heavy with some of these symbols. So when he says, "This is me projecting," right? The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. Maybe he's overcoming the sadness. The sadness is dying. This sad version of himself might be dying, and so he's becoming more himself. He's leaving behind what no longer serves, what is no longer him.
So Carl Jung, and both of you guys have alluded to this about symbols, archetypes. So
flying is a symbol too.
What's that?
Flying is a symbol too.
Flying is a symbol?
Yes.
Of like liberty, of like
freedom, control.
Yeah. So, but can you define what Jung was talking about when he just used the term symbol? Like, what does he mean by that? What is a symbol?
As far as I have come to understand, it's something that represents almost something just completely formless. Just these ideas that are completely beyond physical content. They're these things that our brain puts together in order to understand just the larger universal things at work going on all around us, which is why it's really important to be able to look past the literal image of, flying in a dream or dying in a dream. But if you don't have somebody that is practiced at interpreting those dreams, it can be really difficult to understand what's going on, beneath the surface level. So I wanted to ask, how can somebody just, waking up from the most ridiculous dream they've ever had, how can that person begin to dig into the symbols in their own dream?
I'm so glad you asked. So Carl Jung also has a technique called active imagination. And a lot of people will be like, imagination, that's childish. But, you ever get a flash of an image or a flash of an emotion or even a flash of a memory that is completely kind of removed from the situation you're in? Yeah? So that's your subconscious going, I have something to say. Here's a symbol. So dreams and your subconscious speak in emotions and symbols, not logic. They will use English, but they don't speak English. Wow, I lost my train of thought. What was the question again?
Well, just the issue of interpretation of dreams.
Oh, yes.
And then you asked them about if you have a crazy dream.
Yeah.
So active imagination. So you can actually get into a meditative state or even prayer, right? You can. It's not like you access your subconscious. It's more like you leave a door open for it to give you images. So I can actually walk. We're not doing it today, but I can walk you through this process and just ask you associations. Everyone knows about associations. What do you associate blue with, right?
The ocean, man.
Yeah, there you go. And the sky, and that is a symbol, right? So your associations, so all symbols, like I can tell you symbols all day. These will help you kind of guide your way through asking questions of the dreamer. However, if I dream of a black dog, right? A lot of cultures go, that's a bad omen, that's death. Yeah, but if my black dog is sparking from my childhood, all right, my black dog dream is going to be way different than yours. That might be my childhood coming back, my childhood friend coming back, and that could symbolize me actually being friends with myself, being kind to myself, enjoying things, or maybe I want a new dog. It can be as simple as that sometimes. Sometimes a cigar is a cigar, right? That's a Freud thing. So that's how symbolism works. You can kind of get a guide. However, dreams are highly subjective. So like here's one from my from someone I know. I won't name him, but the guy was like, dreams don't mean anything. All right, I was sitting in a chair while my ex was feeding me tomatoes, and his mom, and she doesn't even care about drinks either. Without skipping a beat, goes, "You hate tomatoes. Your ex is torturing you." And he went, "Oh, that's literally." And I could have, like, your dream could have just said, "Hey, you have problems with your ex," but that's not how dreams go. Right?
Question.
Yes.
I'm going to push back on both of you guys.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think it was Aristotle. Oh, or no, it was actually Socrates who said the unexamined life is not worth living. And then there's a verse in the Bible, 1 Thessalonians 5:21, it says, "But examine everything carefully, hold fast to the truth." What if somebody pushes back on you guys and say, "This is all nonsense. It's all subjective.
Yeah.
This is just kind of gobbledygook, like some kind of theory about dreams. There's really no. It's all just subjective, and you're trying to place like ideological like concepts and like put these in certain buckets, but it's just really we don't know anything about it. Like it's just.
I would tell them that they are not paying attention to neurology. You see, because sleep science and dream research happen together all the time. And so and I was an EEG tech for a while, and we put electrodes on your head, and then we watch the brain. These are physical structures in your mind that we can look at. So they can say it's all gobbledygook, but they'd have to deny neurology at this point.
Many years ago, long before all of you guys were born, there was a movie that came out called Altered States.
I've been meaning to watch that one.
So Altered States with William Hurt. And basically it was a situation where this guy was a scientist and they would go into like, what do you call it? The chamber, like that,
the deprivation chamber.
Deprivation
like
chamber.
Water, headphones.
Yeah, all that. Like, and he would take peyote and go in this chamber. And I don't know, this is science fiction movie, right? Where he regressed into like, into an ape.
Oh, whoa! I haven't heard of that one.
No, that was a movie Altered States.
It's crazy that you talk about this. I mean, it's a really ridiculous science fiction plot, but there are people that are like seriously devoted to sensory deprivation chambers. That there's like this whole group of, I think they're called like floaters, and that's pretty much what they do. I don't know if the peyote is always necessarily involved, but
you'd be surprised how fast you can just hallucinate just off that.
Absolutely, you just remove all sensory details. You get rid of all the noise, and it puts you into this meditative state where your mind is, the door is open. Anything can kind of just slip in, and even if you believe it's gobbledygook,
it has meaning.
It's important to leave the door open.
Yeah, that's why we're in a time where shadow work is like a big thing, and if you go on TikTok, they'll say, "Oh yes, it's part of like witchcraft." I'm like, no. I mean, I guess yes, but at the same time, so shadow work is understanding your shadow. Your shadow will lie to you, or you misunderstand it because it's your shadow. I mean, it's not squeaky clean. It's not. It doesn't care if it makes a mess. If it needs to tell you that, hey, maybe you need to quit your job in a very violent manner, it will do that because that is the emotions that you may be putting behind you. So to understand the symbols that are coming in, right, and to develop that discernment, you have to do dream work, and active imagination is a wonderful way to get through that, so you can really nail down what your subconscious is trying to tell you symbolically.
So Jackson, you have a blue book here. What's going on with this? You did some studying this for this episode. So In a nutshell, what have you come up with for us tonight?
Okay, well, this idea might be incredibly far-fetched, but all the free time that I had this past week, I spent at the library reading specifically ideas about Jung, interpretations, and really just symbol work, trying to understand what was meant by the psychological idea of symbols. And one thing that I came to realize is that there is a difference between symbols, signifiers, and signs. And signs.
Symbols, signifiers, and signs. Wow.
See now he's gotten deep into it.
Well, it's crazy because signifiers, they just represent something. You say like exactly. You say like Coca-Cola, and there's a bottle of Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
And then signs, I believe it's they give order, like a green light, a red light, they tell you what to do. But symbols are these ideas that are detached from our physical world. They exist on this psychological, spiritual level that's just floating above our heads. And just the idea that I had was that our unconscious mind is, just another, essentially somewhere in there. It's just a part of our brain. And it's important to stimulate your brain. You need to do exercises to keep your mental focus, to practice attention and everything. And one question that I had, we live in a time where a lot of people are seriously dissatisfied. And I was just curious to get your thoughts on this. Is it possible that we live in a time where all of our symbols have been essentially replaced by signs and signifiers? And so our unconscious mind is just going unstimulated, and we have this extremely powerful part of us that is just not receiving any attention at all.
Well, yeah. I mean, how did you how did you feel as a kid when you were left alone? That kid's still in there. Absolutely. Neurologically, you're so like the inner child that people talk about, that super hippie stuff. Yeah, neurologically, you're still in there. Your 2-year-old, your 8-year-old is still in there. We've just put more.
But I thought he died.
He is dead, but he's still alive. I know it's very contradictory, but two truths can happen at the same time.
All truth is a paradox.
But but the symbols are, and I like what you said, but that's half of it. Symbols are also, again, zip files. It's if I show you the infinity symbol, right? What do you you can't understand infinity, but I can understand the infinity symbol that represents it, and when you say so your right brain is that emotional side. So like we can talk about symbols all day, but if we don't talk about the emotions that you associate with them, then these symbols are lacking most of the meaning. So like here's an example. Has anyone, and no one has to admit to this, but has anyone had a sex dream about like a friend, a coworker, someone that you are not sexually attracted to, right? That dream, for most people, so sex is a symbol of two parts coming together. I'm not intended, I apologize, but basically, it's a part of you has identified something in that person, place, or thing, whatever you are having action with. You want to bring that into your personality. So, like, say it's a kinder person that you had this. Maybe you want to bring that kindness into your life. It's not about sex. It's about bringing that symbol, that archetype into your waking life with you. A lot of times, not every time. Sometimes it is just you might be interested.
Well, believe it or not, we're closing in on the 45th minute mark of our show. It goes pretty quick when you've got a lot of people in the studio. But I have a few questions for you guys. So I've had the misfortune of dealing with a lot of homeless people's schizophrenia on the streets of Los Angeles. I spent over 20 years of my life in California, and much of that was involved in Christian ministry, and we would be in the streets of Los Angeles giving out, bags of food and stuff to people, and we would run into schizophrenic people out there. Just some really odd stuff that we would see out there. And I remember talking to this lady, and she seemed pretty calm, homeless lady out there. And then when we mentioned Jesus Christ to this lady, she started screaming at us, like just dropping all these F-bombs, and it was fierce way. Now, potentially, she had a situation where she probably was hurt by somebody from a Christian background or something like that, or parents, something deeper than that. But now, I'm not an expert by any means. This is why I had you guys come on, because you guys even thought about this deeper than I have. But when I look at the bio of Carl Jung, okay, it seems, his father was a Christian pastor, right? And his mother had these kind of like dreams at night, some weird, strange things. Spirits, she said, would come to her and speak to her and different things. But they say, now, I could be wrong on this, you guys can correct me, but they say that Carl Jung could have potentially, at times in his life, bordered on schizophrenic behavior or schizophrenic activity. I just read that today.
Yeah.
Is that possible? Is that
if you look at some of his old his end of life work, there's like this
the Red Book.
Oh yeah, Blue Book and Red Book. I read about that.
I haven't looked super into it because I've been doing my own work. But you seen the centipede? So his symbols, he went deep. He went really deep in there. There's stuff in there that is no longer you. It's still you, but it's no longer you, if that makes sense. You're dipping into some like base programming at that point. Like incredibly so. Like we're talking bottom of the ocean, and then you dig, and then you find some stuff. So when it comes to schizophrenia, neurologically, that's where your left brain and your right brain start doing this. There's less of a division. A lot of people on the spectrum, more on the autism side, also kind of have that pattern. Okay, so when you see a schizophrenic, if that person was treated correctly, right, this would actually be a beneficial thing for them. They would be able to access the supercomputer that is the subconscious mind. Because if I do a left and a right take and I don't even really consciously look at anything, I will know everything in this room subconsciously. All right. If you make a little micro expression, because I've been trained to read those, I don't have to consciously understand it, but subconsciously, I will know your emotions, maybe even what you're thinking about around about, and I may get a feeling of, something's wrong, right? It's that I have a bad feeling about this. It's not a supernatural thing. Your subconscious is a supercomputer. So when you look at schizophrenics, this is someone who could have been a genius, in my opinion, that wasn't given the tools. Carl Jung was an astronaut, and he died in space, in my opinion.
I think it's
the Red Book.
Well,
talk about that.
Yeah, he knows more.
You brought this up earlier. He came from a Christian father, and his mother's family had a long line of spiritualism. He does not meet the modern requirements to be diagnosed as schizophrenic, but he is documented as having seen, he talks about seeing ghosts. And he is by no means this like raving lunatic out on the street waving his t-shirt in the air, screaming about like Bloody Mary or whatever. But he sees these ghosts and he recognizes them as a part of himself. And so all these ridiculous, abstract, just all this crazy nonsense. He throughout his life he sort of compiled that more intense side of his mind. There was a lot of conflict between his Christian and spiritualist upbringing that probably caused a lot of psychic torment, and he eventually ended up channeling it into this book. It's almost like a medieval manuscript, and it's like scale, just these incredibly elaborate drawings. And I mean, it really all goes back to symbols, like these mandalas, I think they're called. It's just these big, sprawling works of art that they're just full of super
symbols.
Absolutely,
absolutely. Because you can so what's better, a picture with words? A picture with words, or just a picture, or just words. If you get both, everyone in the crowd is more likely to get the message. So when he started doing that, right? When you start doing a lot of dream work and you bring it into your waking life, you'll start seeing these archetypes everywhere, and it's so sleep paralysis. You've heard of sleep paralysis? Anyone here experienced it? Oh yeah, You get any hallucinations?
Not that I remember, but I do remember all the time as a bad like sleep paralysis in general, though.
What is that, Brock? What do you mean by that?
I mean, when you're just like asleep and you just wake up, it's like you're through some in the morning, you're just like, frozen.
Yeah.
It feels like you're frozen. You
can't
move.
It's because neurologically, if there's a switch in your brain that turns off your motor functions, so you don't act out your dreams. So you see sleepwalkers, sleep eaters, sleep murderers. By the way, that's an option apparently. Yeah, people have gotten off of murder charges by sleepwalking, and they verified it too. But when it comes to sleep paralysis, you wake up, right, and then you can't move. For those of you who don't know what sleep paralysis is, a lot of people will feel if you're on your back, and it does happen more often when you're on your back, and so they'll feel a whole pressure. So your brain will sometimes project images to explain the sensation you're having. So a lot of people, like a lot of cultures, there's the dark, really scary woman who is now sitting on your chest. There's a lot of paintings online. If you look up sleep paralysis or sleep demon, you'll see a whole bunch of stuff on Google. And so people so you're panicking, something's wrong, there's been a glitch, right? And so your brain goes, there's a woman on my chest. And actually, to understand that image, you'd have to understand the animus and the anima, basically the masculine and the feminine energies. So masculine is more logical, projective, right? Feminine is more emotional, feeling. So in that moment, when you're feeling panicked, you're going to project most likely a woman who scares the heck out of you. So that's that. So a lot of people have the Hat Man. Have you heard the Hat Man with Benadryl? Or even sleep paralysis?
I am glad that I haven't.
Oh, you should be. But there are people all over the world who have seen the Hat Man, and there's also a whole bunch of people all over the world who have seen Sasquatch. Right? You're freaked out. You might project an image, and I'm sure people are aware of that.
Well, guys, we're going to wrap this up here in a sec. Here, I want you each to kind of summarize your thoughts. Brock, Antonio Brown, the wide receiver for so many good teams, right?
Right.
Pittsburgh. Then he went to New England, right?
Right.
Do you think he had maybe some emotional issues, some issues that were going on that caused him to kind of just collapse?
Say that many people say that in 2016 during the postseason that he There was late in the game, Vontae's perfect and the Bengals just knocks him out during a helmet-to-helmet hit. And that's what many people say was the reason his behavior just started spiraling from there. So, I mean, he just has, like, issues and just needs some help.
Okay, so, Jackson, some final thoughts before we log off tonight.
I just want to say it's very important to leave the door open for anything that your mind is trying to tell you. If you're a Christian that's terrified of Buddhist meditation, or if you're a realist that looks at dream analysis and goes, well, that's just a bunch of nonsense. It's so important for the progress, the growth of our minds to just leave the door open for these wonderful experiences.
Yeah, because eventually your subconscious stops doing the soft knock, and that's where you get mental breaks. But what I would like to say is separation is an illusion. Your dreams are not separate from your waking life. Your waking life is not separate from your dream life. It's all about becoming who you really are, who you actually want to be, because that's the kicker. It's who you actually want to be when it comes to dream work. We've just denied ourselves to fit in for survival purposes. Which, I mean, look at this place. We need more art. We need more music, philosophers. Not what we're doing.
I want to give you guys a challenge. I want to invite you guys back on. Mm-hmm. This has been one of the most interesting shows, Hump Rock, that we've done.
Absolutely.
I've done close to 50 shows here at UNT, and this has been by far one of the most interesting shows because bringing up issues that are normally not talked on this show.
Oh, anywhere, really.
But I'm going to give you guys a challenge. Before you come back on here, I want you to get a hold of the movie Altered States, and I want you to watch it. I'll pay the fee on Amazon Prime or whatever you need to do for you guys to watch it. I want you guys to watch the Altered States. Write this down, guys. Altered States.
I'll be bringing my receipt. I'll be expecting a $2.99.
Yeah, I guess. No, but seriously, I want you to watch that movie, and let's talk about Altered States and how it relates here, because there's some interesting stuff here. Also, did you guys ever see the movie The Doors?
Yeah.
It's before your time, but basically,
like the band.
Yeah, there was a movie that came out in the late 80s, early 90s. I think it was actually 1991. And it basically, those guys would go out in the desert and take peyote. Now, I'm not advocating peyote use here on KNT radio by any means. All we're just talking about is the mind, the subconscious mind, how it operates through dreams. But the people did things with peyote that kind of expanded their minds and brought in issues of consciousness. And this movie Altered States, it's far-fetched. I mean, there's all kinds of science fiction aspects to it. Yeah. But I'd be interested to see what you guys think about it. And then we'll have you guys on soon again, okay? I want you guys both to come back on.
However, if I watch the movie, you have to give me a dream that we work with. I won't interpret your dream. I'll just ask you questions later.
I have to think about that. I mean, you can talk about the one about me continually frying.
I just want one dream. That's all I want.
Continually flying. That's a dream. Well, guys, we're headed towards being on the air for an hour. And usually we go about 45 minutes, so we're going to sign off here. This has been Lee Enochs and Brock Virgin.
Yep.
Brock, who's going to win the game, Detroit or Kansas City?
Kansas City.
Okay. Jackson Pohlmeyer.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And Devin Scott.
It's been great, man.
This is Lee Enochs, and this has been a most interesting, wild podcast tonight at UNT. God bless. Have a great day.